I'm Kat.
And I'm Hayley.
And this is Night Classy,
a tipsy night class teaching the oddities and curiosities you never learned in school.
What are you teaching on this learning journey, Hayley?
I will be teaching us about a macabre Middle Ages religious event.
I love everything I just heard.
I thought you would.
Middle Ages, religious event.
It's a banger for sure. I think you'll enjoy it.
Does this have anything to do with what is it in Italy with the pointy hat robes they were wearing for Easter recently?
No, it doesn't actually, but it is in Italy.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, they have all kinds
Italy.
of
Yes.
weird religious shit there.
Oh, yeah, they're
not weird, but the Catholics have a lot of ceremonies, I feel like.
Yeah. By westernization, it's pretty weird.
Listen, if I were going to be a Christian, I'd want to be a Catholic just for like the pretty architecture and the cool ceremonies.
Yeah, definitely. If you just suspend your disbelief a little bit, Catholicism is pretty spooky.
Yeah, it is spooky. It's the witchiest Christianity for sure.
Absolutely. And they like to drink, so
they do.
I think I would fit in.
I could drink wine at church.
Oh, you definitely drink wine at church.
No grape juice for me.
A Catholic funeral? Nothing like it.
And there's the dead body there.
Yes,
that's a party.
Love a dead body.
I love a viewing.
Oh, yeah. For one of my sources, it was a YouTube video, and it was Ask a Mortician, and she talked about, she was like, hey, all my, like, death lovers or something like that, or people who are interested in death. I'm like, that's what I am. I'm interested in death.
I love death.
I do.
I'm a death lover.
And not for me, not yet, but one day I will absolutely love being dead. Eternal sleep.
You don't
hanging
get to
out
sleep
in the void.
Yeah, I would like to be in the void.
Yeah,
swimming around.
I'm so looking forward to the void. It's like snotted.
You snotted.
I did. I breathed out and I felt like something large came out. But enough
I hate
about
that.
me. I don't think anything actually did.
I'm glad you have a napkin ready to go.
Well, I've learned. After 163 episodes of doing this podcast.
Yeah, Hayley's a napkin girly. She's got to have one on hand.
Yeah, I need to invest in some of those really nice Kleenexes that have the lotion infused.
You need to invest in a new nose.
Yeah,
is what you need to do.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. Widen those puppies up.
And soon, because pretty soon I'm going to be having to pay for my own insurance. So it might as well be on my dad's dime.
That's true. Yeah. Get that done quick.
No, he'll just forward me any bills that he gets at his house.
Well, you are 26.
That's true. But mentally and emotionally, more like 17.
I feel like you become an adult when you start paying for your own insurance.
I'm so not looking forward to it.
It's really not that bad. I don't even notice it.
You got thrown into it.
I got forced. My hand was forced.
So rude.
If I were like paying the bill every month and it wasn't like automatically taken from my paycheck, I would be a lot more pissed about it.
That would be different.
But this way, I don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I am missing.
I automated my savings and all of my other things. Alec, I did what you did, and I have all these different, or I don't know if you did this, but you recommend it, but I have all these different vaults for rent and utilities and subscriptions and savings. And it's like, as soon as my paycheck direct deposit hits, it's like, boom, 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 sends the exact amount that I need for each of those things. And it comes out of those accounts. And I'm like, this is what neurotypicalness probably feels like.
Yeah, well, I'm happy for you. I need to get an Acorns. Have you heard of that?
Yes. Yeah, I've heard of it.
It rounds up to the nearest dollar and puts like the change into savings. My dad's always raving about it.
Yeah, I used that for years, and then I had to buy Christmas presents and got like $300 out of it. Yeah.
That was me on I had a boyfriend in college who got really into stocks, of fucking course, and he made me get a Robinhood account. And so I had like Facebook stock and like random stocks. And then same thing, I had to buy Christmas presents and cash them all in. I should have held on to them.
You could have been rich, especially with Facebook and Meta. I feel like that's
just
grown
right. That was
crazy.
A bad idea. I think I bought that stock for it was between $50 and $100, so it wasn't cheap, but probably it'd be more expensive now.
Well, still a good lesson. The stock market goes up and up and up and down and down and up and down, and it all goes crazy. But you just gotta stick with it.
I remember
it trends up.
the exact moment I cashed them in. I was standing in the mall in line for pictures with Santa Claus that my mom was making me do. Literally after I had just gotten off a red-eye flight, she made me go to like the busiest mall in Washington, Bellevue Square, to sit on Santa's lap as a 23-year-old woman.
Oh, so this was recent. Okay, I'm picturing like college Kat.
I mean, it was like coming
Pretty
off
close.
of senior year, like the first Christmas out of college, and I cashed in my stocks at the mall.
You gotta do what you gotta do. My mom made me take Christmas pictures like that for I think probably the same time that we did. Yeah, I was doing just about the same thing.
I'm forced to do them whenever the opportunity arises.
Your mom makes things happen too. She
is forceful.
If she's enthusiastic.
Persuasive.
I'll say that for sure. Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
Love you, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Well, what are you teaching?
Well, y'all know what I'm teaching. I am continuing my Donner Party saga.
I was hoping that was it last week. Just kidding.
Well, yeah. I mean,
it's tragic, but also one of our favorite.
Yeah,
in a weird way.
It's
stories.
just about to get so much wilder. And it's crazy. This story is so long. Like you could easily have an entire podcast about it, but I had to cut so much out just to make it fit. Like, it makes me want to revisit it again sometime.
That's what you definitely should. And once Night Classy really gets off the ground and we're doing this full time, to be able to have a bunch of extra Patreon shows will be really fun.
Yes.
And that reminds me, I want to say thank you to everyone in the Facebook group who recommended podcasts and artists and playlists. I really got to expand my horizons during my trip, which was safe and entertaining. So thank you for that. I'm still getting through all of them. I found a few that I really am enjoying, so I just kind of binge some of those episodes. But thank you all so much. I will be listening to every single one you all recommended. I can't wait to report back the maybe top 3.
Yes, we'll make it a competition.
Oh, I don't know what the prize is, but
the
prize
my
approval
is feeling like you won and Hayley's approval.
So if you're late to the game and you want to go add some recommendations as far as podcasts go, you can join our Facebook group. It's Night Classmates on Facebook.com.
Yeah, join the Facebook group. I posted a video there, I think 2 days ago, of a baby birds in the baby bird nest I found. It was very cool.
Your voice cracked me up. I listened to it so many times. It was like panic and excitement at the same time.
Hayley, it was terrifying because what happened was the nest was like up on a fence, so I couldn't like look down into it. I had to look at it through my phone.
Yeah.
And so we were like, let's see if there's eggs in there. So I put my front camera on, held up my phone, and then screamed because there were baby birds in there.
Yeah.
And so then I like collected myself and then went back to take a video. It was so exciting. And then they all started like screaming and opening their mouths like I was going to feed them.
Yeah, like someone gasped or Alex said something and they all like woke up and jumped up and be like, oh my gosh, they're mommy.
And then Alex told me to stop torturing them because they thought they were going to get fed.
They did.
I had nothing for them.
They were needy.
They were.
You
they were so cute.
Baby mama them.
I should have. Next time I'll chew up a worm, spit it into their mouth.
It'll be worth it. That is one of those instances where you do it for the story.
Yes.
And solely for the story.
Just kidding. Nobody do it. Last year I found a baby bird and it was like wandering around on the ground and I thought that it fell out of a nest and it was hot that day, so I felt bad for it, so I gave it like drops of water and then I posted the video on TikTok and then everyone screamed at me not to do that. So I learned that.
Why?
That you shouldn't.
You posted that on your personal TikTok?
Yeah.
Did you delete it?
Yes.
I did not see it at all.
I deleted it because apparently you're not supposed to do that. They kick the babies out on purpose, and apparently the mom was probably watching nearby, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
I should have Googled it. That was really dumb on my part. And then I just like wanted to give it water, but then you're not supposed to. So my bad.
That's like I posted a picture of Safety and Baby, my 2 cats, when Baby was really small, and it was where she's like up on her hind leg smelling a bouquet of flowers and Safty's just kind of watching her.
Yeah.
And it got some attention and people in the comments were like, don't let the cats anywhere near those flowers.
Yeah.
Like Hayley talks, I'm like, You're right.
Yeah,
You're
now
right.
I
They
know.
didn't eat them. Now I know. Then they're fine now.
That's like when Ernie was a baby, he used to nurse on the tip of his tail, and it was so cute. So I put a video on Reddit, and then all the comments were telling me that I like took him from his mom too early, and they do that if they have like attachment issues from being weaned too soon, which is probably true. Like we did get them probably too early. I think they told us they were 6 weeks. I think that was a lie. I think they were actually 5.
Yeah.
The shelter was just like desperately trying to get rid of cats. So
I think so
our bad,
too.
sorry.
Yeah, but baby has baby time too, as we call it. Yeah,
She has baby time.
Yeah, she used to a lot, not so much anymore, but there's a specific blanket that she really liked that she would, knead and then suckle on it. And it would be like hard in spots from her saliva,
Ew.
like suckling it so much.
Like
so that's
crusty
like
blanket.
her blanket. Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah.
And you call that baby time?
Yeah, it's baby time.
You guys have the weirdest names for stuff.
It makes life fun.
That's true. Do you usually come up with these things or just Tommy?
It's a mixture.
Yeah.
Definitely a mixture.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like mostly Tommy.
Yeah. Baby time sounds like something Tommy would come up with.
Yeah.
And then he makes you give him baby time.
Oh my God. It's
That was
consensual
creepy.
baby
Sorry.
time.
Yeah. What are we drinking today?
We have a very special bottle of Stella Rosa blackberry sparkling wine. Shout out to Dr. Mike Malone. That's so funny. I've never called him doctor in my life, but he's one of my old professors from the University of Cincinnati. We've stayed in contact and are friends, and we met up when I was in Cincinnati, and he was going to bring us a bottle of blackberry wine from around like the Oxford, Ohio area. But then he forgot it. So we went to Kroger and he got us this instead.
Yeah.
And it's good.
It is good. It does taste like blackberries.
Yeah. It's like a desserty blackberry.
It reminds me of, what do you call it? Like the champagne for kids, the
Yes.
sparkling apple juice.
Doesn't seem alcoholic at
But
all.
it tastes delicious.
Which might be an issue. Yeah.
Well, I have a fully empty stomach right now, so I think
Hell
that's
yeah.
probably a good thing if it's low in alcohol content.
I also have a nearly empty stomach. So cheers
Well,
to us.
Cheers. Should we get into it?
Let's do it.
Okay. So just to quickly recap, it's November. We're stuck on top of the mountain, like the very beginning of winter, and it looks like they're going to be stuck here for a long haul. The snow started early, and yeah, we are out here.
Recap. Things are bleak.
Things are bad. All the families besides the Donners are camped at Truckee Lake, and there's 3 cabins that were already built there. Cabins is a generous word for what these were. They were very rustic, dirt floors, leaky roofs. I mean, these were cabins like hastily built on top of a mountain that people kind of like roll through when they need to. Nobody's maintaining them. They're leaky. They have no doors or windows, just like a hole to get in and out. The Breen family got a cabin, the Eddies and Murphys shared a cabin, and the Reeds and Graves shared the last cabin. There's also the Kesebergs. They didn't have any room, so they built a lean-to for themselves against the Breen cabin. So we have 60 people. 29 of them are children. All sharing these 3 small, like one-room dirt floor cabins.
This is like that meme where it's like, I'm in danger.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Donner Party was about 5 miles behind everyone else, and they set up camp at Alder Creek. There were no cabins at Alder Creek. The Donner Party had 21 people, and they just had to set up tents with whatever they had. They had some like real tents. They also used quilts, buffalo robes, whatever they had. There's also no food left, basically. They have like a few animals left, but they've pretty much gone through all their food. So to make things worse, as soon as they got to camp and like set everything up, pitched their tents, there was a huge snowstorm. And this snowstorm buried the remaining horses and cows.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. And
Frozen.
also with snow covering the ground, there's no vegetation for any animals that made it to eat. So now oxen start to die. And they're starving to death. So when they die, like there's not like a whole lot left on them to eat anyway.
Yeah.
but you're gonna save what you can. So they were stacking up their carcasses in the snow. Luckily, it was cold enough now that they're frozen, so that preserves them. But soon they depleted that pretty quickly. Some people had no oxen left at all. The Eddy family was out of oxen, and desperate for meat, they agreed to pay Graves $25 for a starved to death oxen carcass. And this was a shit ton of money at the time. This was normally enough to buy 2 living, healthy oxen, but this was like them buying like a skinny old oxen corpse for that much money.
What other options do you have?
You don't.
None.
No. You also might be wondering why they didn't hunt or fish. The lake wasn't fully frozen and there were trout in the lake, so technically they could have, but most of these people were farmers. Like, they didn't know how to hunt or fish.
Yeah, not unlike myself, fishing never crossed my mind until you literally said that. You may have thought that. No, not once. I would have never been like, let's fish.
I'm sure some people were thinking it.
I'm sure
they
were.
are at a lake, but they didn't have any fishing supplies. I'm sure they could make them. Have you ever watched the show Alone?
No.
Okay, well, it's awesome. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. They send like professional survivalists up into northern like Alaska and Canada to survive a winter on their own, and they make it work. It's fascinating. So I'm just picturing this. I'm like, oh, it's easy. Like, you just like make a net with this. It's not actually easy, but they make it look easy. Eddy managed to kill a bear, but that was pretty early on, and after he did that, their luck kind of ran out with hunting. That was it.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Something, never mind. I don't want to spoil any future TV shows that you may watch.
Okay. Once they'd eaten all the oxen meat, the only thing left to eat was hide and bone. So meat, food, everything's gone. Ox hides were boiled down into gelatin to make like a sticky gray jelly, and that was the main food source for a while. They would
Jello.
Yum. Yeah, they also would boil bones in water to make broth, and they would just keep boiling the same bones over and over and over again, basically until the bones fell apart and were soft enough that you could eat them.
Wow.
When the bones ran out, children picked apart the oxhide rug in one of the cabins, and they'd sit there picking apart the rug, roasting it in the fire, and eating it.
Yeah, anything tastes good at that point. That is such a dire situation. Is it still November, would you say, at this point?
Now it's like early December.
Oh, geez.
I think the meat ran out toward the end of November, and then like things get really bad in January. Sometimes people manage to catch mice in their cabins, and they could eat that. The cabins, by the way, were dark. There's no windows. They're overcrowded. And often there's so much snow outside that you couldn't leave anyway. So you're sitting in these dark, smelly, dank, crowded cabins for months and, well, I guess weeks and weeks.
Was it at least warm because of the body heat?
Maybe a little bit, but not that warm.
Comfortable.
Still cold. It's like warm enough that you probably won't get hypothermia, but like still fucking cold.
Good. So you can be conscious for this.
Exactly.
hellscape.
You can feel every moment of it. Even if you could leave your cabin, like if it weren't too snowy, everyone was so malnourished that they didn't have any energy left. So pretty much you're just laying on the floor of your cabin trying to pass the time.
Yeah, just like a weeks-long depression nap.
Except way worse.
Yeah, yes, way worse.
Except you're like depressed and not in a bed.
Malnourished. Weeks-long malnourishment nap. Is that
you're eating
more accurate?
a rug and raw mice you find on the ground.
Oh, it just seems unreal. I didn't mean for that comment to be insensitive or anything like that. It's just unreal. It's unimaginable.
It's very difficult to imagine how awful this would be. Once the rugs were eaten, the only ox hides that were left were the ones they used to patch the roof, because the roofs of these cabins were all fucked up. But now that there's no food, they have to start eating their only shelter. So
Oh,
now
just-
like snow and rain can get inside the cabin. It's the beginning of December and people began to die of malnutrition. Things were getting really desperate, and at this point, like it's basically they're feeling like we either need to leave and like maybe we'll die on our way out, but like we're gonna die here if we don't at least try.
Sure.
So Franklin Graves put together 14 pairs of snowshoes. He used like bones from the oxen and whatever hides they had left. 15 men, women, and children left camp with what little they could carry in an attempt to get help and save the group. They barely had any food because no one did. And they were already extremely malnourished. And now with no snow camping experience, they're trekking through the Sierra Nevadas in homemade snowshoes. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I literally, I don't know how it could get worse. I know that it does.
Honestly, I think I would probably volunteer to go, because what could possibly be worse than just like waiting to die? Like you at least now you're out in the air, like
Yeah.
feeling like you're doing something proactive.
I would either agree to go out, or I'd be like, guys, stop tearing the roof apart and do some like voluntary cannibalism just then and there.
We're getting there. That part's coming. So by day 3, most of the group was snowblind because yeah, everything's covered in snow. So now they're lost because they can't see, and they're also out of food. And to my knowledge, this is the first time cannibalism was floated as an idea.
Can you imagine being the first one to float the idea of cannibalism?
Well, Patrick Dolan stepped up to the plate.
What if, and hear me out, we ate him?
Well, no one's died yet.
But they will.
So right now they're all still alive. And he says, well, what if someone sacrificed themselves in order to feed the group? And so they're all like, okay, good idea. We're so hungry.
Is it you? Are you doing it?
Right.
Is that
what you're doing right now? Thank you. Thanks, Patrick. Good
Love you
talk.
so much. This was so fun. Bye.
It's good to know you. They debated over whether there should be like a duel or they should do some kind of lottery, like pulling sticks. Luckily, neither of those things turned out to be necessary because people started dying on their own.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, of course they did.
Right. Like you just had to be patient. First, it was Antonio, then Franklin Graves. Patrick Dolan became delirious. He stripped off his clothes and ran into the woods. He did come back, but now he had horrible hypothermia because he's naked in the snow, and he died soon after. And I believe he was the first to be eaten, which was ironic because he's the one who suggested the idea.
He manifested it.
He did.
That's how manifesting works. It's not just for good things.
You smelt it, you dealt it.
There you go. It smells like barbecue. So let's go, Patrick, or whatever the fuck your name is.
Antonio, Graves, and Murphy were also eaten. Their flesh was dried and packed for later. And I thought this part was really interesting. They carefully sorted out the different people's bodies so that nobody would have to eat their own relative.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really heartbreaking.
Yeah. It's like almost, like you just want to like control the situation in some way and make it somehow not as bad
There is
as it
still
seems,
There's still a line.
There's a line for sure. Not everyone succumbed to eating human meat. There were 2 Native Americans who had joined the group at one point. Their names were Salvador and Louis. They refused, which is why this next part is extra rude, because the group started to whisper about killing and eating them. Eddie was a good guy. He warned them that this is kind of like what the plot was, and they were able to run away. So now there's only 7 people left in the group. A few days pass. It's been 25 days since they left camp. that they've been wandering through the snow.
Are they going the right way?
Yes, they are going the right way. And on this day, they find Salvador and Louis. I don't know why I keep wanting to call him Louis. They're both starving because they just ran off on their own. They have no food, and they're really close to death. William Foster shot them both for food.
Those were the two Native Americans?
Yeah.
Just sight unseen?
Yeah. And this was the first, it wasn't the first murder. There had already been one of those, but it was like the first murder for cannibalism.
Wow. If you can't eat them, shoot them.
Yeah. And it's like really.
And then eat them.
Yeah.
And then eat them.
Yeah. It's fucked up. It just sucks that the two people who like wouldn't do the cannibalism were killed for that purpose.
Yeah, and it makes me question, like, did the people who did engage in cannibalism then feel like some complex, like they couldn't trust them?
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible. Or it's like, well, if they're not doing the cannibalizing, they're going to die anyway. Like, they're gonna starve. Also, I'm sure, like, these are Native American guys with all these white people. Like, they were the outsiders. That's part of it.
Already.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask like a dead men tell no tales type question, which
Yeah.
is how do we know the play-by-play?
Because there were survivors and people kept journals.
Journals? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people did survive.
Okay. I guess they were just honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, some were honest, some didn't want to talk about it, some exaggerated it. I mean, that's, how
I wonder
humans are.
who, and I'm sure you'll probably tell us, but I wonder who was the first person to say, like, yeah, we ate people out there.
Well, I will kind of tell you. So they're walking through days later after they kill these two guys. They come across a Native American settlement. And at first they thought it was abandoned because it was so deteriorated. It looked empty. But people began to emerge from the houses. And it turns out they were nice enough to give them some food. They gave them what they could, which was acorns, grass, pine nuts. Like, they were struggling too. It's a tough winter. There's no food. And they also offered to help them get to help.
That is so nice.
I know. So Eddie and a few of the tribe members go out for help. The rest of the group stays in the settlement, and they trek out until they reach a ranch at the edge of the Sacramento Valley. The people in the ranch were willing to help them. They put a rescue party together and went back for the 6 others.
Whoa.
On January 17th, 33 days after they left Truckee Lake, they were saved. In the end, 8 men in the group died and 5 women survived. On average, like, a lot more women survived than men, which is actually really common in these survival situations. Women fare a lot better in like starvation.
Yeah.
And I do have some reasons for that, just because I thought it was interesting. Especially in the 1800s, the men were expected to do a lot more of the physical labor, so they're expending more energy. And then on top of that, men tend to have higher metabolisms in general. They also have more lean mass, less subcutaneous fat than women, so they just have less fuel to expend in the first place. So the very worst thing you could be in a starvation survival situation like this is an in-shape young man.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. So after they reached safety, the group, of course, wanted to put together a rescue party and go back for the others. That was the whole point. But this is easier said than done because the Mexican-American War is going on and most of the able-bodied men are off fighting.
Oh, no.
And to get my numbers straight, there's like 40 people at the original camp still.
There were
20 people left.
We started out with almost 90. Now at the one camp, there's like around 60. And at the Donner camp, there's a little over 20.
Okay.
So there's still like almost 80 people, or like about 80 people left.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So also, do you remember Reed, the one who shot the guy and then was exiled?
Yeah.
He made it through the mountains, and he's in San Jose, like worried about his family and friends, and he's telling everyone like, we need to go rescue them.
Yeah, he's raising the alarm bells.
He is. That's what he's doing.
And it's like, what can you possibly imagine is happening out there? And then it's probably 10 times worse.
Yeah,
than
for
what
sure.
you can imagine.
So he got San Jose to petition the Navy. Also, newspapers are now reporting on the story because the snowshoe group is talking to newspapers and giving them interviews. They're telling them about the cannibalism. And this actually drums up a bunch of press and sympathy. So people rally behind them. The residents of Yerma Buena raised over $37,000 in today's money to put forth a rescue attempt. Other people are volunteering for rescue. And things are finally happening. On February 4th, William Eddy and 10 other search party members set out to Truckee Lake. Eddy and 3 others, Eddy stopped at one of the camps. I mean, he was weakened from being in the snowshoe group, so he kind of just waited at the base camp for the rest to get there. Mm-hmm. 3 others ended up turning back. So on February 18th, there's 7 rescuers left in the party, and they reached the cabins.
Oh, I would not want to see that sight. I mean, I would because that's my job as a rescuer, but
they're volunteers. I don't think anyone was prepared.
No one's ready for what you're walking into.
Yeah, it's pretty bleak. So at first they didn't see cabins. They got to where they were supposed to be, but it looked empty. All that was there was a disgusting, overpowering stench. They yelled out looking for people, and soon Miss Murphy emerged from a hole in the ground. She's pale, she's skeletal, and she looks at them and says, "Are you men from California, or do you come from heaven?"
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. She's delusional.
Yeah.
Or thinks she is.
She thinks she might be dead.
Yeah.
The cabins had all been buried in snow, so that's why they didn't see any. The oxhide roofs had all rotted away. That was part of the stench, is the rotting hide. 12 people had died in the camp, and their bodies were left by the roofs, just under a light dusting of snow. One by one, survivors emerged from the holes in the ground, and rescuers were able to give them small portions of food. They didn't have a lot of food because it was too snowy for pack animals, so they just had to bring backpacks.
Yeah,
and it took a month to get there.
Yeah, you can only carry so much. Mm-hmm. And then their stomachs, I'm sure, had shrunk back down over that time. You can't really even eat a lot when
you're not supposed to eat too much when you're starving. So of course, everyone's starving. Many of them are also suffering from mental health crises. They've if you're sitting in those circumstances for months.
So were they just in the snow?
They were in the cabins.
Oh, okay.
The cabins had partial roofs and then were buried with snow. So it was actually probably pretty good insulation. But yeah, basically in dark holes in the snow. When the rescuers reached the Donner camp, they found they hadn't fared much better. George Donner had gotten a cut on his arm much earlier in the journey, and by now it was super infected, to the point he couldn't move. There are 48 total survivors here now, but without pack animals, the rescue party couldn't take everyone. So I'm sorry, I think I said it was 80. Now that enough people have died, it's now 48.
Oof.
23 people were chosen to go, and some had to make the difficult choice of which of their children to send and which to leave behind.
How do you even make that decision? Again, it's pulling cards.
I think the way this decision was made is whoever's strong enough to go the journey. Shape. Yeah, whoever has the best chance of making it. But still, it's so difficult to imagine. 2 of the children died on the journey back. The rest survived by eating the buckskin fringe and shoelaces from their rescuers' clothing, because I think the rescuers gave the camp all the food they had, so they had to do this month-long journey back without food.
This is breaking my heart. I have no words.
It's horrifying. Then, on their way down the mountain, Margaret Reed heard a familiar voice coming toward them. It was her husband, James Reed, with a search party of his own.
Aww.
She was so shocked and relieved, she collapsed in the snow.
And died.
And no, she didn't die. The group made it to Bear Valley, which is the final stop before safety. And at Bear Valley, there was a food cache. Is it cache? Cache?
I don't know.
Cache. That night, one of the boys, William Hook, who was Jacob Donner's stepson, broke into the food storage and gorged himself.
Oh, no. You're not supposed to do that.
It was a big mistake. So as we kind of touched on earlier, eating so much or eating too much after starving can result in something called refeeding syndrome. When you're starving, you're depleted of all your necessary minerals like phosphate and magnesium. Then if you eat too much, whatever little minerals you have left are sucked out of your blood to help with that digestion process, which results in an imbalance of minerals and electrolytes. And this sadly ended up killing William Hook. He was so close to making it.
Is it painful? I'm sure
Probably
painful.
I would imagine so.
Painful.
Yeah.
I was gonna say at least he died a happy death, you know?
No, I feel like you'd probably have like horrible cramps.
Yeah.
Is what would happen. Your
body's like
your muscles.
Out.
Yeah. It would be awful.
Oh man. They just can't win.
No. The rest of the group continued on without him and did make it safely to Sutter's Fort. Then the second rescue party arrived at Truckee Lake on March 1st. So now it's like almost spring. They've been there truly all winter.
Oh my God.
No one else at camp died between the first and second rescue parties. But
I don't know how.
Right. But
like they've had literally no food. Well, they did have a replenishment. Yeah.
There were a bunch of corpses
okay.
before and they survived, but conditions had severely deteriorated. About the Murphy cabin, George R. Stewart, who is an author, he wrote it, quote, "past the limits of description and almost imagination." Lavinna Murphy was having a mental health crisis and was nearly blind from malnutrition and living in the dark. She was in there with her children who she was obviously unable to care for. They were filthy and neglected. Rescuers found Milt Elliott's dismembered body that the camp had been cannibalizing. The Donner camp had also resorted to cannibalism. When researchers showed up to the camp, they saw Trudeau carrying a human leg.
Oh.
And he saw them, like, panicked and threw it in a hole. And then when rescuers went and looked in the hole, they saw the mostly eaten remains of Jacob Donner.
Oh. Ugh.
Yeah.
Everything
Can you
is a
imagine being one
nightmare.
of these rescuers? How horrifying that would be.
Yeah.
And traumatic.
Everyone needs therapy after this.
Yeah. His wife, Elizabeth Donner, had refused to eat him, but she was keeping her children alive by feeding them their father's organs. On March 1st, Reed's rescue party took 17 of the remaining victims. Only 5 people stayed back at Truckee camp, while at the Donner camp, Tamsin elected to stay with her sick husband, as well as her daughters, Eliza, Georgia, and Frances. They stayed because they were expecting that a third search party was like right on their heels, and Tamsin really didn't want to leave George, and then of course wanted to keep her children with her. The second rescue was much more difficult than the first. There was a severe blizzard, like almost right off the bat, and that killed 5-year-old Isaac Donner. Mary Donner had a difficult time walking, because her feet were badly burnt. She was so frostbitten, she didn't realize she fell asleep with her feet in the fire.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I just keep saying, "Oh my God." I don't even
know
know
there's
what to
nothing,
say.
There's nothing to say. This isn't. This lesson doesn't lend itself well to comedy. If you haven't noticed.
Yeah, the front end had more opportunities.
Yeah, things are real bleak. The Breens and the Graves families became too weak to go on, and the rest of the group was forced to leave them at what would come to be known as the starving camp. Aptly named. Several of them died early on, and the rest survived by eating those who passed away. By this time, the 2 male survivors of the snowshoe party, William Foster and William Eddy, were headed to Truckee Lake with another rescue group. Their mission was to save their own children because both of them still had kids at Truckee Lake. And on their way there, they came across the starving camp and saw the Breens and the Graves in like really bad conditions, and most of them were children.
Hey, guys.
Hey, what's going on?
I wonder if after this, and I can't say what I would do because I've never been in this situation, but I wonder how many of them, if any, ate meat after this, like the survivors.
I would imagine you would.
I think so too, for the time
Yeah,
period.
like there's not much else to eat. Maybe not like pork, like anything that could remind you of it. I don't know.
I don't know either. I wonder if that information is out there.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, people definitely wrote a lot about their experiences. Like everything's very well documented. You could probably find someone talking about it.
Yeah, I'll look into it, let you guys know.
Foster and Eddy left the starving camp. They kept going because they just really wanted to save their own children. But there were other rescuers who took as many Graves and Breen children as they could back to Bear Valley. Some of the children, though, were so weak that they couldn't walk. And like they also couldn't be carried. Like there weren't enough rescuers to carry all of them. So most of the rescuers were like, you know, like, too bad. Like we need to leave them. Like we can't have them slowing us down. We need to save who we can. But there was one rescuer named John Stark who just didn't want to leave any kids behind. So what he did was he carried one child at a time up the trail, set them down, went back for another kid, picked them up, and he went the entire way back like that.
Wow. So he is an angel. He is from heaven.
Truly. Like beyond. Like I tear up when I like think about that. He got them all the way back to safety.
Oh my God.
On March 14th, Foster and Eddy reached Truckee Lake. Tragically, their children were dead. Keseberg even confessed to Eddy that he had eaten his son. Foster and Eddy took the 5 remaining children back with them. Keseberg chose to stay, and that was like a little bit of a weird decision because he could have gone. My feeling is like maybe he felt so awkward after he ate Eddie's son to like go that entire trip with him. Like he didn't want to owe him anything else, you know, after doing that. I don't know.
For sure. Used up all of his courage to tell him that he ate his child.
Which like why even tell him that? I don't
think you even have to
like
say
why
it. Like,
you don't have to say it.
You don't have to say it. You can
why say it?
Make the inferences. Yeah, why speak those words?
It makes no sense to me. But
it's not good for anyone.
He wasn't thinking straight at that point.
Was unwell for sure.
Lavinia Murphy stayed because she was too weak. And the 4 other adults, and also George couldn't go because his arm was still infected. And then Tamsin refused to leave her husband. So these 5, and Tamsin is one of like the heroines in a lot of retellings of this story, partially because she was a martyr. She wouldn't leave her husband. She stayed with him until the end.
Stand by your man.
Yes.
And his nasty arm.
His nasty gangrene, rotten arm. The 4 adults remained, knowing that it was unlikely there'd be another search party coming for them.
Do you think any of them had sex during this time?
No. You'd be so miserable. You have no calories to expend.
Yeah.
And what if you got pregnant?
In November, I'm like, was there any point in time where they're like, maybe one last time, like things are looking bleak? Was there any enjoyment like that?
Maybe.
Surely not. I know in like the new year, but I'm
it's
curious.
Yeah, maybe back in November. It's possible.
Yeah, little romp in the hay.
Yeah, like sneak around into the forest.
Yeah.
Possibly. Definitely not at this point. I don't think anyone's thinking about that. On April 10th, so about a month later, a salvage party went to Truckee Lake. They were not expecting to find any survivors. They planned to salvage whatever they could, whatever was of value.
Yeah, it's like the original American Picker.
Yeah. At first I was like, man, this is really fucked up. But the reason they were doing it was to sell this stuff for money to support the surviving Donner children.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. They reached Alder Lake first, and all the tents were empty except for one that contained George Donner's body. And this is tragic because he had died only days earlier. He almost made it.
Damn.
Then they made their way to Truckee Lake, where they miraculously found a survivor. Louis Keseberg was alive to tell them what had gone down since the last rescue. He said that Murphy died really soon after the rescuers left. And then about a week ago, Tamsin had shown up at his camp because she was back at the Donner camp. She was planning to hike to safety on her own. I think George's situation had deteriorated enough. She felt like she needed to just leave. She was soaking wet and freezing, so he gave her a blanket, told her, just sleep here and then head out in the morning. But she died that night.
Yeah, sopping wet, that is no bueno.
Yeah.
As soon as I would see, if I was in this situation, a rescuer, I would just start crying immediately.
Yeah.
What a release. Be like, this happened and then this happened and this happened. And then I would die.
Yeah. I don't know how you would even have the energy to tell them. Yeah. So this story, though, sounded extremely suspicious to rescuers because they looked around Keseberg's cabin and they found George Donner's pistols, they found jewelry, they found $250 in gold, and a pot of flesh that presumably was Tamsin's. Their assumption was that Keseberg had killed Tamsin to steal from her and eat her. So they're like, you killed her on purpose, and they plan to lynch him right then and there.
Oh, yeah. They do not waste time in this story.
No, nobody in this story is fucking around.
There's no room to be fucking around.
No. So Keseberg was like, whoa. Tamsin gave me the money and everything else because she knew she was going to die. Basically, she wanted me to keep it safe for her children. She couldn't take it with her when she was going to hike back. He said she gave it to him. And without proof otherwise, they kind of reluctantly accepted this story and allowed him to leave.
Yeah, we'll let you off this time, but next time you're going west and get stranded in the woods and something very suspicious and there's a flesh pile, a bucket of meat,
then it'll be a pattern. Yeah. We'll ask the tough questions then.
It takes two, but for today, okay, we're watching you.
Yeah, first
he's
strike.
the meme of what are you doing? Me? Huh? Just hanging around.
I'm not doing anything. I'm not fucking worried about it.
Much like Tamsin is often painted as the hero, Keseberg is painted as the villain.
Nature is the villain.
Right. Well, the freaking guy Hastings who got them all in this mess, he's the villain.
He's the one who told them to go down that trail.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah.
He's the
it's all his fault.
Well, and Manifest Destiny.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Christopher Columbus.
Manifest Destiny is the real villain of
and
the
colonization.
story. There's many villains. But also Keseberg. So a lot of people think it's suspicious that he chose to stay when he was healthy enough to go with the third rescue party. He could have left. And this has whole kind of been blown out of proportion into he's this monster who liked the cannibalism. He was being a wild man in the woods eating people and it was fun for him. He didn't want to go back to society. That's not true.
Okay. Yeah, that's a interesting rationalization to get too.
And I don't even think he killed Tamsin. A lot of people did at first, and then they interviewed him and were like, no, this guy didn't do it. He's every bit as traumatized as everybody else. Nobody wanted to be in this situation. I think it's crazy to think that anyone enjoyed this experience, no matter, even if you are a fucked up dude. Like, this was terrible. Of the 87 party members, 48 people survived.
That's way more than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot. It's honestly amazing that many people made it.
Yeah, I was not expecting over half.
Yeah. Well, it's not over half. It's just under. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, it is over half. Sorry, I can't math.
Hell yeah.
3 mules were the only surviving animals, which I'm shocked that any animals survived.
Yeah, what the fuck? Why didn't they eat the animals before they ate the people?
Maybe they were animals that had like gone with like Reed, or like escaped ones, that like made it out on their own. I don't know. I would think if they had them, they would have eaten them first, probably. But who knows? Maybe they did like it. The survivors went on to live their lives as best as they could. There wasn't therapy back then, or like serotonin reuptake inhibitors, so I don't know how well they really did. Many wrote and published their own accounts of what happened, which is why we have so many details.
That's the way to do it. After that, you can't just work a normal job.
No, you write your tell-all and you cash in.
Yeah, you're not a normal person after that.
Mary Graves remarried and soon became a widow again when her husband was murdered. Murdered. His murderer was caught, and she cooked that guy food every day while he was in prison.
I thought you were going to say she cooked that guy. I'm like, man, old habits die hard.
Now that she got a taste for it. No, she cooked him food every day because she wanted to ensure he would survive so that she could watch him be hung. She wanted him to make it to the day of his execution.
So, yeah, she's mentally
ruthless.
well.
One of her grandchildren remembers her saying, quote, "I wish I could cry, but I cannot. If I could forget the tragedy, perhaps I would know how to cry again."
Awful. Yeah, just totally numb.
Yeah.
After, like,
I mean, how could you
move
not
on,
be?
and how do you deal with that? That's so
Right.
huge. And for the time period, ugh.
Keithsburg was pretty much shunned by society. A lot of people still thought he'd murdered Tamsin. He's quoted saying, "I often think that the Almighty has singled me out among all men on the face of the earth in order to see how much hardship, suffering, and misery a human being can bear."
Yeah, he's now an outcast. He's made to be an outcast after going through this immensely traumatic, life-changing, months-long event.
Yeah.
And now you don't have any friends.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks that you're a murderer. And
You might be.
But are there rules when you're in the wilderness like this? Just kidding. Just kidding.
Probably murder is where the line should be drawn. But by all means, like, if you're going to die and someone died naturally, do the cannibalism thing. Like, that's certainly your best bet.
I think that's justifiable.
Definitely. One of the victims, I skipped ahead. Lansford Hastings was also criticized heavily and received death threats. He was the one that sent them across the Hastings cutoff. But other than that, lived a normal life. One of the victims of the Hastings cutoff scheme, not in the Donner Party, but I mean, another one that went through hell trying to cross that, got a chance to confront him. And they said, quote, "Of course he could say nothing but that he was very sorry and that he meant well."
No, you meant well for your wallet, really.
Yeah.
You cannot even imagine what they went through.
No. And I mean, to be a little bit cliche here, like, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And in this case, that is very, very true.
I know. I don't know. Sometimes I struggle with, do intentions matter or not?
Yeah. And in this case, like, he is 100% responsible. And I don't think he meant anyone to have a hard time, but he certainly wasn't like thinking, he was being selfish, and he wanted he wanted this to work so that he could be the hero without like giving it some critical thought and thinking like what could actually happen. So fuck him.
This is the perfect example of being like, what's the worst that could happen?
And then the worst thing possible literally
it.
happens. Yeah. But that is the story of the Donner Party.
My gosh, Kat, you did a great job. I felt like I got to know so many different characters.
Yeah.
Well, real people, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, characters in this real story.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Well, I hope that yours is fun and light.
I think we'll have fun with it.
Okay, good. I'm excited. I'm going to drink the rest of this wine and hear a fun story in just a moment. We will be there soon. It is the best time of the month.
That's right. It's our time of the month for Cocktail Hour every first Friday. We do this.
You can join us on patreon.com/nightclassy, where there will be a Zoom link and we can all hang out in our PJs. We're going to drink some margaritas. I literally can't wait. And you don't have to wait because it's in a day.
Yes, that's right. Also, I think we should get queso. Cinco de
Yeah,
Mayo?
we should always get queso.
And some guac, probably too.
Definitely guac, homemade,
Homemade,
always.
all the way.
Packaged guac is not
It's an absolute no-go.
zero.
But y'all don't need to worry about that. You can just show up, cameras on, cameras off. We don't really care. We just hang out, and it's so fun to get to chat and spill tea, hear tea. I'm just here for the drama mostly.
I have work drama to share this week. I shared some last month and I am coming in hot with more. So if you would like to hear that, the only place you can do it is on our cocktail hour. To join, just go to patreon.com/nightclassy and join at any tier. Not only are you supporting the show, but we get to hang with you.
See you tomorrow, May 5th at 7 p.m. Central Time. Welcome back, my friends.
I feel welcome.
good. Are you ready to get into some creepy details?
So ready.
Hopefully this will be somewhat of a palate cleanser. So back in the 800s AD.
Jesus. Okay.
Over the span of 20 years, 7 popes had been ruling in reign. Like, not all at the same time, but 7 over the span of 20 years. But they kept dying. In May 896 AD, Stephen the 6th or 7th, we're not really sure if he was the 6th or the 7th or if he was both, and they just like didn't have good records on how many Stephens there were. Nonetheless, most sources and the Catholic Church cite him as Stephen the 7th.
Okay.
So Stephen the 7th became Pope. And before he became Pope, came Pope Formosus, who died of a stroke, but also probably poisoning, they think. And this was like the Pope thing to do. They were constantly dying under suspicious circumstances.
Would you kill the Pope so that you could be Pope?
Yes, either you were doing it. It probably wasn't the upcoming popes, but it was.
They wanted their guy.
They wanted their guy because it's the Holy Roman Empire. A lot of crazy shit is going on, and it's all politics. And the Pope is the law. The Pope gets to pick the emperor, and it's all this interwoven web of lies and religion and deceit. So, a lot of people was like, oh, maybe it was a stroke, maybe it was poisoning. And directly before Stephen, quote unquote, took office, it was Pope Boniface the 6th. He served for an entire 15 days before he died of gout. AKA.
You mean Pope Boner Face, as I like to remember him.
Yes, you know him well, apparently.
A little too well.
A little too well. Yeah, so he only lasted 15 days, but not bad for popping a boner face for 15 days straight. But also suspected to have died of poisoning. Pope John the 7th started all of this drama with Formosus, and I'm really not going to go into all the political, religious stuff because it's just kind of boring, honestly.
And confusing. I'm already confused.
I had to look up so many words for this.
The Pope that we're talking about is currently the Formosus, which is what exactly?
So we'll focus on the main players in our story today are Pope Stephen and Pope Formosus.
Okay. Oh, so that's his name. I thought you were saying like Pope Formosus, like that was like a job. I was picturing him as the pharmacist of the Pope.
It does sound like a job. Yeah. In Latin, it means good looking.
Oh, was he?
Yes. It's hard to say based off of all the
true.
media.
They weren't great at painting in the Middle Ages. Famously, they were actually pretty bad at it. They hadn't figured out perspective yet.
There's a painting, and we'll get to it. I didn't send it. It's not in the slides, but we'll get to it. So there's all this drama, basically, with all these popes they're cycling through. And for example, John Pope VII, he was poisoned suspectedly by his own people, but the poison wasn't working fast enough, so they bludgeoned him with a hammer. So it's just give
him more poison.
Or more time.
Or not kill him.
Yeah,
do that.
That's also an option.
That's plan A.
So the Holy Roman Empire was absolutely feral at this point in time. And the Pope was decided by the papacy, and the church, like I said, it was the law. So it's safe to say that a lot of the power went to their head once you were, a bishop or the Pope. You were the law. And not long after Stephen VII was crowned Pope, he got down to business, and he started a trial against former Pope Formosus. I already mentioned how Formosus means good looking in Latin, and Formosus was really good at his job. He was super influential. He was bishop, I think, in Bulgaria. And because of all of these political games that himself and others in power were playing, when he gained success and recognition, that also came with powerful supporters, but it also came with enemies, and it kind of put a bullseye on his back.
Wait, so is he alive?
Well, the problem with this story is that he had died 7 months.
Because there's a new pope.
Yeah.
So they're going to put the dead guy on trial?
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
Fun. Okay, good idea. This is a useful way to spend resources.
It is, at least in the eyes of Pope Stephen.
Right.
So Formosus had been dead for 7 months and, had been decaying like you do. So he had spent the last 7 months getting his rest, sleeping 6 feet under the ground when his body is dug up from the ground. And his trial was in regard to crimes that Formosus was accused of while he was still alive, but he was also cleared of those. Like, his name had been cleared. John Pope VII was, I don't know. He
was
him.
Pope now. He's
Pope now. He's like, it's fine.
Yeah. Who cares?
But Pope Stephen was like, I really don't care what you were cleared of. He wanted to do this. He hated Pope Formosus, so he doubled down.
Was it because he wanted to spite Pope Formosus' guys? His supporters? Like, he wanted to get back at them somehow? Because
I think maybe that. I think he wanted to humiliate him in death. You'll see that Pope Stephen was seemingly mentally unwell.
Right. So as I imagine everyone was back then.
Yeah, no. Mental
That's the
health
only way to understand any decisions that were made prior to 2020.
Yeah, the default was mentally unwell for sure. And even in 2020, I still like looking back at all of those memes where people like, oh, if I wasn't mentally unwell during COVID, then would I be watching Shrek on my fridge or that corner where they just threw all their glass bottles in their apartment.
Oh my God. Yes.
I think we're all doing the very best we can. And back then it was even more difficult to do that. But easier when you were Pope. So there's his mental health that's playing into this. And then another part of it was that I guess long and short of things, there was a rule that you couldn't be a religious leader in 2 different regions. So while he was alive, Formosus was like bishop in Bulgaria and then got crowned pope. So for a time, he was kind of overlapping, but so was Pope Stephen. So
everything is projection all the time.
Exactly. Like when you circle back and really take a critical eye, it's like, okay, so you're just like a self-hating 2-timer.
Yeah, he was cheating on Bulgaria with the papacy.
He was. So there's a lot of things that go into why he would want to put him on trial. He exhumes Formosus' corpse and puts him on trial. He ensures that Formosus was dressed in his pontifical vestments and propped in a chair in the courtroom. He was even assigned legal counsel. A deacon of the church would serve as his quote unquote lawyer.
This is worse than when they put the bugs on trial in that one lesson I did. Remember the locusts or something?
Oh, yes.
And it must have smelled so bad.
Yeah, Alec, can you look up a picture of this?
There's a picture?
There's a painting.
How do you spell his name?
I would search the Cadaver Synod, Synod. And you'll see they have him all dressed up. We'll see his deacon who's like kind of talking.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It's like a nasty, rotten skeleton.
Yeah. It almost looks
still
like...
has a beard, and they put little gloves on his hands.
Yeah, you don't want to see that shit.
No, his fingers are probably falling off. They had to. They're mittens.
But he got to sit in the throne and all of that.
Oh my God. This is so embarrassing.
I know.
Imagine being someone sane who just had to like help put this on because you were told like it's like throwing a
It feels
it's
like a
when your
puppet party.
2-year-old wants you to throw a birthday party for their imaginary friend and you're like, okay, like
Yeah, wink wink.
Yeah.
We're gonna play along because otherwise things could go very poorly for me. It's like, what can I do to in interest of self-preservation?
Yeah.
And everyone who participated in this was doing that.
I think this was AI, but look at this rendition.
Oh my God.
It looks like him.
I'm gonna start using AI to create images for my TikToks.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
You could have a picture of whatever you wanted.
Oh my gosh. And then I'm always scared that people will be like, I'm the artist of this picture.
That
and I don't
happened
wanna
to me
steal.
once.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were like happy to, because it was a viral video, so they were like excited that their art was in it and asked, they were like, can I post this on my page? I'm like, yeah, obviously you can. Like, I'm sorry I stole your art and didn't credit you.
It
was the Spaghetti Monster video.
Oh,
I
yeah.
like showed a picture of, I put someone's art and he makes like mugs with it on there.
Our
I think
first,
I
like-
shouted him out in the comments once I knew, but
That's my nightmare. I always I have this default to guilt and shame.
Oh,
And I wasn't
yeah.
even raised in the church. I feel like that's really common for like religious people. Maybe it's just anxiety.
yeah, I think that's just anxiety. I get the same whenever we get a DM, my heart always like sinks a little bit. Like 99.9% of the time it's people being super nice and lovely and supportive.
Yeah.
But for some reason my mind always goes, we fucked up and now we're going to get yelled at.
I hate being yelled at. I think that's mostly why I was a good kid. Not because I didn't want to do bad things, but I just didn't want to be caught and then get in
No, it's
trouble.
the confrontation.
Yeah,
Can't do
I
it.
can't handle it. I can't handle
No.
it.
But looking back at this dead pope, you know that room was not well ventilated. There's so many like fibrous surfaces. That place stunk.
So bad. And we don't know how long, at least I don't from my research, how long this trial lasted. But Shelley wasn't good. Like he was putrefied.
Yeah.
Ugh. And I kind of already mentioned this, but it's thought that Stephen was possibly pressured into this trial in order to humiliate him in death. And they think that maybe he was pressured by the Spoleto family. So during his reign, Formosus, the dead guy, assigned Lambert Spoleto as co-emperor along with this guy's father. But one of Formosus's last acts was crowning Arnulf of Carinthia as Holy Roman Emperor. So this essentially fired the Lambert people and stepped on their toes. So they were really pissed off. But none of that mattered at the end of the day because Arnulf he also ended up dying around the same time that Formosus died. And then Lambert became emperor again.
Okay.
And Lambert and Stephen were buddy-buddy. So basically, it was just a bunch of politics. And you might already be able to tell it's suspected that Stephen was not doing well mentally. He's been described, quote unquote, as being induced by an evil passion.
Oh.
Which I really like that terminology. I think it's kind of a fun way to spice things up. And he hated Formosus, meaning that this entire trial, like you've already pointed out, was like putting on an imaginary friend's birthday party. It was essentially a puppet show for Pope Stephen. And the actual trial, referred to as Synodus Horrenda or Cadaver Synod, is, as it's more popularly known, played out in January 897.
Okay.
Formosus' charges were as follows: perjury, publicly aspiring to be pope, and being bishop.
That's like on The Bachelor when one of the girls gets accused of like talking about being the next bachelorette.
Yeah.
Publicly conspiring to be the lead.
Or being like, I have 10,000 followers on Instagram. They're publicly conspiring to be an influencer. That was exactly this. And then, of course, being a bishop of two places at once. Before he died, Formosus was actually excommunicated during Pope John VIII's reign, but then the other pope pardoned him. But in Stephen's eyes, he still had to be punished even after death.
So it sounds like, I mean, what, excommunicating him and like this and everything and pardoning after death, it's like to get him in or out of heaven. And imagine if all of this is real and his soul is just going from like heaven to hell, snip, snap, snip, snap.
Snip, snap.
With all these trials and pardons and excommunications.
Heaven has like a bouncer and it's like, you gotta go. You get thrown out.
Yeah, he's like a dancing drunk on the bar and they kick him out and then
he falls off.
He like sneaks back in.
This was not a normal trial. Stephen literally would scream at Formosus' corpse and interrogate him.
Oh my God.
The deacon representing Formosus was made to crouch behind the body and impersonate his voice to respond.
No, that's not real.
It's so real.
Oh my God.
When asked questions like, why did you usurp the papacy? The corpse would be like, because I was evil. Oh. So it's all rigged. It's like literally a puppet
Did he
show.
use a squeaky voice?
I don't know. Probably. They're like, what's the most embarrassing thing? Oh, he could sound like a woman.
Yeah.
Quote, the old man's body, like a monstrous doll, might nod and bend while attendants supported it, or collapse in a ghastly bundle if they left it alone.
So they had someone like puppeteering
moving it.
Oh my God. Was it on strings or did they have to use their hands?
They probably used their hands.
Gross.
Yeah, I don't think.
And how is it not
strings-
falling apart?
I don't know. It was probably like. Well, he was buried, so it's not like he was in a catacomb or anything. So there's probably moisture underground.
Ugh.
I don't know. Italy maybe is just mummifies different.
Yeah, he's just embalmed really well.
He is. It's a natural embalming.
Gross.
At one point, a major earthquake hit and like ruined some of the church that it was this trial was held at, and everyone was like, this is a sign.
Yeah,
from
Daddy's
Sky Daddy.
angry.
But Stephen was like, no, I speak for Sky Daddy, and Sky Daddy says, don't stop.
Sky Daddy's also having as much fun with this as we are.
Yeah. He's like, how far will they go? Let's find the line.
He makes like this guy's soul in heaven like watch the trial with him, and he's like delighting over Him being possibly sent to hell and
They're
watching him
eating
process
popcorn
that.
together. Formosus was found guilty.
Oh, shock.
Guilty as hell. All of his acts as pope were null and void, including any appointments that he made, ordinations, consecrations, and that includes a rule that was made that you couldn't be bishop over 2 territories, meaning that Pope Stephen was no longer in the wrong for breaking the rules.
Thank God.
Thank you, Sky Daddy. Thank you, woman in the sky. They stripped Formosus' corpse of his pope clothes and changed him into rags. And then they chopped off the 3 fingers that he used for blessings.
Okay.
One in
I'm
the
just
pink,
surprised too.
2 in the
We're
pink.
already. Oh my God.
That's never mind. I read an article.
I give her the Pope's blessing.
Well, I was teaching my students how to play a game called Signs. They have to make a sign with their hand. One of them did the shocker, and I was like,
God.
okay, pick a different sign.
A+ for
Yeah.
that. I think that's wonderful.
I didn't.
Yeah, as a teacher, sure, but they're not my students, so
Yeah.
I love it.
You guys can all laugh at that. I wasn't laughing.
That's what I miss about being like in the classroom as a preschool teacher. It's like there are so many conversations you could have with other adults in the classroom that the kids would have no clue what you were
That is
talking
nice.
about. It was
Yeah.
wonderful. It was wonderful. So they chop off his fingers, they bury him in a commoner's grave, and the dust settles for a little bit. But then Stephen decides he's not done yet. He digs Formosus up again and tosses his body into the Tiber River. Historians point to the importance of relics in religious life, especially during this time period, to understand Stephen's motivations for further desecrating Formosus' body. The corpse of a holy person was, quote, transformed by death into a holy relic, a source of miraculous power. So people could go to this gravesite still and pray and worship him. And he essentially lived on in the eyes of these people. And that's what Stephen wanted to come to an end, because he hadn't gone far enough already.
Okay.
After being thrown into the river, Formosus' corpse was found by a monk. And then the monk buried him.
Okay.
And the people of Rome were pissed at this point, and they were mad at Stephen. They were over this entire situation, and it seems that this throwing him into the river was the straw that broke the camel's back. Groups gathered in protest demanding Stephen be removed and hopefully go to therapy, as they wanted a legit pope in power. They succeeded. Stephen was stripped of his title, jailed, and then strangled to death in jail.
Why?
Because he was an asshole.
Okay, but
I don't know why he was strangled. I can imagine he probably pissed somebody off. It's like if Trump were the Pope in the 800s.
yeah.
Like, you could probably be expect another cellmate to just take him out. Right?
Yeah, I guess if you're that insufferable, jail probably isn't the safest place for you.
They hated him.
Yeah.
And maybe it was something else. I couldn't find more information
Yeah.
about the strangling. But yeah, about 8 months after this whole trial, he also died. So
Okay.
the next pope overturned Formosus' conviction. But
Snip,
then
snap. Now he's
snip,
back in
snap, snip,
heaven.
snap. He's back in heaven. I think he's going to stay. He did stay in the commoner's grave, however, and then another pope recovered Formosus' body.
No.
He returned. He got his body back, but that pope only was in power for 20 days. So then the next pope reburied Formosus in his original grave and forbade any future trial of a dead person.
We're not doing this anymore.
I am fucking done. This is it. It shall never happen again.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Sky Daddy's going to hear about this when I die from poison in 20 days.
And then don't you dare dig me up and put me on trial.
Don't you know what? I'm also unouruling cremation for Catholics.
I can have another earthquake.
Everyone burns. There's no official documentation from the Catholic Church of this entire situation, but it does exist. The Catholic Church has tried very hard to expunge this entire situation from history.
As they do.
As they should. But this name is still etched into stone in a list of people buried at St. Peter's Cathedral. That is the Cadaver Synod.
Wow. That was special.
It was macabre.
Something very special indeed.
We got a lot of Sky Daddy in today's lesson, so I
Yeah.
hope you all enjoyed that and don't be offended, because if you are, really don't give a fuck.
The creativity is unmatched.
It is. It's really something that could have only happened in the 800s, I think.
I don't know.
Listeners,
we
do
could
you
have
know?
a repeat.
Is
You
there
know
another
what?
instance? Who are you trying to put on trial?
Who would I dig up? I don't know. I'll have to think about it.
Okay, well, think on it. We'll let you guys know.
Could be real quick. It could be a cool, scary movie if the Pope's corpse like slowly started to like move, like twitch its fingers and stuff
Ew.
over the course of the trial,
Yeah.
and then they like couldn't get rid of it. Like it kept crawling back into the
Yeah.
castle and
Ew.
stuff.
And they go to like cut off his fingers and he grabs their wrists.
Yeah.
Zombie Pope. Let's make it.
Let's make it happen. I think that'd be the best
Patreon
Pope.
show.
Oh, okay.
Soon we'll be able to plug in our idea into AI and it'll make us a full feature-length movie. So first
Yeah.
thing we're going to put in is Zombie Pope.
There is an anime that has been put out. I think it's like 6 minutes long, but it's all AI made. It is insane. I'll see if I can find
Is
it.
it
Maybe
good?
we can link it. Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
Dang.
And I don't really even watch anime, but it's
Yeah.
incredible to watch and think, wow, a computer made this.
Yeah, it's coming for all of us. Nobody's going to
I'm
have a
ready.
job. Me
Yeah.
too. Just give everyone a stipend and nobody has to work because computers do everything for us.
Are you a socialist? Why, yes, I am.
Yes.
In the best way possible. All right, well, let's continue this conversation over on Patreon for extra credit.
Yes, and we will see you there. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the show. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Tell a friend. And join us on Patreon, maybe, if you want to do that.
If you're into that kind of
Over
thing.
there.
If you want to be our sugar mommy, sugar daddy, or sugar people.
Yes. And we love you so much. 3, 2, 1. Class dismissed.
Great show.